Hmm. Hello, everyone. Nice to see already so many faces not, but names, familiar names. Saying hello to a few people. Hello, Krista, Amanda, Victoria, Sarah, Joe, Manal. I see Martha, I see Deepak, I see Rachel, Martine, Christopher, Lisbeth, Francis, Joe, Jody, Francesco, one of our supporters, Mimi, Sarah. Welcome to the early comers already. How was the morning, Steve?
Quite good. I've just resent you the link for Jamie in case you need to send it again over WhatsApp.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, got some stuff. Manal even hosted Vincent Young's session for me, which was lovely because it meant I got to sort of join in. Like there was a bit of email stuff going on, but he's awesome. I love doing that. The others all good as well.
Nice. How was it for people? How many sessions do you attend this morning already? Write the number in the chat. Or maybe this is your first one of the day. Yeah, great to be with you, Christopher. Nice to see you. Manal is writing he's awesome. I think she's referring to Vincent. Amanda, 3 sessions. That's all. That's all we had this morning already. Lisbeth also. Nice. We have a few hardcore people here. 1.8, writes Martine. Jody also 2. Sarah too. She writes, loved Vincent sessions. I need to watch the recording. I was also doing emails this morning for that, so missed that.
And are you a moderator, Daniela, or a presenter?
I'm moderator.
Okay, so you have all the power. May I go chat to the tech team quickly and leave you to it?
Yeah, sure, go for it. The stream and everything is already set up, right? So I'm just waiting for Jamie. Maybe
Yeah,
wait until Jamie is here so we can start.
okay.
Otherwise, I'm
we'll
like
just
half
have to
trying. Yeah, otherwise I have to improvise. Mm. Hello. Yeah, Jessica, I'm also very excited for this topic. Demons, shadow work.
zucchinis.
Yeah. Zucchinis. Oh, we're going to talk about zucchinis. Hmm. It's such a pity that I can't see people. That's really the one thing I really miss in these huge sessions, these webinars.
I've got a few emails as well. People's feedback saying it would be nice to be able to stream in and see some people, but then other people are saying, oh, it's really nice that we don't get distracted by other people on the screen. So there's positives and negatives, I guess.
Sorry, I was reading something in the chat, which gave me a little bit of a chuckle. No, it's not COVID. I just have a dry throat.
Yeah, this is the EFC COVID, Kent
It's
COVID.
COVID, yeah. Hmm.
We still have no Jamie in the house. Did you want
Mm.
to give him a call or something like that? Because you have his number, obviously, and I can just um, be a dancing monkey.
Sorry, I was just texting him.
I was just going to say, did you want to give him a quick call and I can be a dancing monkey while you do so?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Alright, so I'll be a dancing monkey here for you people. Would you like to tell me in the chat what you would like me to do? Do you want a mini 5 minutes of movement or meditation? Or do you want just us to shut up and just sit in silence for a little bit? Breathe together. Manal. Welcome Manal into the room, and she danced ever so nicely here as well. She's on the leadership team, so she can tell me off a little bit. Alright, so there's a few people who have been sitting here for 3 hours, or more than that, and also a few people said that they liked the eye movement this morning. And now I can see Jamie's in the room, so I should shut up. But remember that you can, move around, rotate your eyes, look out your windows, let objects far away and close again, and all that sort of stuff, just so that you can, rest your eyes, briefly relax, anything. What would you like to say, Manal? Join the party house.
I was jumping in to see if you need a help, kind of assistance with the monkey business. But I think our services are no longer needed.
I think we have the main monkey here now. Jamie, want to say hello? You're still muted. Hey, unmute you. Hey, Jamie.
Hello, my lovely. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. I can see you. And it's a pleasure to see you. So good. All right, let's start the session. Thank you, Steve, for jumping in, and also Manal. This is the second day of the self-care weekend, and with me here is Jamie Cato, and I'm reading a very quick bio. So Jamie Cato is a creative professional, former rock star, and certainly a jazzker and a mischievous person. He facilitates professional, personal, and creative breakthroughs, drawing from his own processes and groundbreaking film production philosophy, voyages, and music. Jamie, it is a pleasure to have you here. Welcome.
Great, thank you.
So this is going to be an interview style. So I will throw a few questions in towards Jamie. And I told people already we're going to talk a little bit about shadows, about special needs characters, and probably zucchini. So, but if you have certain questions, if you have questions you want me to ask Jamie, please use the question and answer box, and you can there also vote for questions, and I will pick those who have the most likes and who are most interesting for the majority of people. Jamie, my first question for you is, what's self-care? What's self-care for you?
What's self-care?
Yeah.
The greatest self-care for me is training myself to notice the difference between the kinds of thoughts and perspective that the wise, kind, present version of myself, the one that's talking to you now, has, and the other thoughts and perspectives and agendas which seem very real and very compelling that creep in from my mind, all the crazy characters that live in my head. When they creep in suddenly, when I'm not expecting them, something triggers me, or just a stray thought, like if I'm just, lazily not doing anything. Some of the things my mind think are very much not coming from my present, trusting, self-loving place, to know the difference between those two things, and to know which ones are worth following and listening to as my compass, but which are worth saying, hey, thank you that, for your help, but I don't need you right now. Some of the voices are old patterns that think they're protecting me, and neurosis. To know the difference is the greatest self-care, and to act on that.
Yeah, the first question, there are many things in that. How do you know the difference?
Well, all I have to do is want to know the difference, and they make it pretty obvious. To even care about the answer to that question gives you the answer. The moment we stop and pause and listen and feel, just even in 5 seconds, it's obvious which is which. There's never a thought where I go, is that my soul and my grounded truth, or is that some neurotic, grasping, compensating control trip? Like the great thing about neurotic and demons and all that kind of shadowy stuff is that most people are always like looking the other way. No, I don't want to. We're so comfort addicted. We just don't want to ever deal with it. But the great thing about them is they're so obvious. The moment you even look at them for 1 second, their game is up. They don't take huge analysis. They're so obvious when you look at them. The trick, the challenge is not to have some great analytical process to distinguish them. The challenge is to have the courage to even just turn to look at them in the first place. The moment you just even are interested to look, they reveal themselves and often actually bring a lot of treasure behind them. It's not just about neutralizing that negative thought. Suddenly, when you become interested, you go, okay, I'm feeling that negative thought. That feels uncomfortable. What is my need underneath that? Usually, like even negative thoughts, we don't just want to dismiss them and go, no, you're a neurosis, goodbye. It's not about suppression. It's about looking at them a different way to go, okay, just a bit like a child who's screaming and crying. You don't just push it out of the room. You listen to what it's saying, you tune into the child and you go, okay, it's screaming and crying about something, but that's not really what it's upset about. And you feel behind it, go, I see what the child needs. I haven't fed it for 3 days or whatever it is. So always, even the most yucky thoughts will reveal to us the treasure of an unmet, real, legitimate need that we would do well to meet healthily. So they all have treasure in them.
That's already so rich. I love the conversations with you because it tunes me immediately back into my own needs and into my own, like taking me out of my head and into my body. And what I hear a lot from you is it is not about analyzing, which is bad news for us rationalized people living our lives just from the head, which I used to. But it is a lot about being courageous and turning towards that. And you use different names for these kind of characters. Like in your book, you're saying like sometimes demons, sometimes special needs characters, sometimes it's a very young part of ourselves. Can you talk a little bit about that, about these characters? What part of us are they, and how do they relate to self-care?
So the best way I can describe it is like, take for example, there's a moment in your childhood where you're 7 years old and everybody laughs at you. You got up and you weren't prepared and everybody laughed at you and you felt ashamed and it was a horrible exiled feeling. At that moment, the little child doesn't think it consciously, but inside this is like, I never want to feel that ever again. I never want to be in that experience ever again. And the child creates a little being inside to guard the door of ever feeling that horrible feeling again. And it lives in your brain forever, holding that door shut of feeling laughed at and shamed, right? And it lives there forever. And it's like 7 years old. It's always got the 7-year-old's perspective. It doesn't grow older. Like you grow older, you become 10, 20, 30. That child never grows older. It's always still looking at life through the 7-year-old's perspective, holding that door shut. And then when anything, it thinks it's its job, we gave it that job to make sure we never feel those feelings again. Then if something comes along in your life, like somebody asks you to stand up and give a speech and you feel exposed, or you're going to give a maid of honor speech at someone's wedding, or something is coming up where there's possible exposure, for that child in your brain, the door starts rattling, like maybe some of that feeling, and it makes you terrified. It floods your system with adrenaline or cortisol. And you think that you're terrified of public speaking, but you're not. You know how to speak. You know how to open your heart and speak. But that child has grabbed the wheel. It's grabbed the consciousness and made you go to sleep, made you have spiritual narcolepsy. And now suddenly life is being looked at through this 7-year-old agenda of this 7-year-old's terror of ever feeling that exposure again. And we flip back to being a regressed child. So that's one example of one of the characters that live in the head, and it thinks it's protecting you. In the child's mind that's holding the door, it's protecting you from and doing a job that it was told to do and never told to stop. So in its mind, it's helping, as is your critic, your inner critic, the voice that's making you feel terrible about yourself. Because we were made to feel shame when we were small through harsh criticism, we learned, that's the way to keep successful. That's obviously the way that I keep on track, is with a criticizing voice. So again, we internalize one, and it thinks it's helping because that's how the grown-ups and the teachers treated it. So it goes, that must be correct. It didn't realize as a child that these people were idiots or ignorant. So it goes, that's the way to keep myself, and it internalizes it. Another one is that we have learned through our culture that when we suffer because of our weird religious-based culture, we've learned that when we suffer, we deserve more love. Not true. But we live in a culture that has suffering for love. Suffering is a great currency. People come in and they go, I've got so much to do and so little time, or sulking or complaining or always exaggerating how bad things are, because we've learned that when we suffer, people give us more care and attention and we feel more deserving. It's one of the great currencies of our culture. So we have a victim that lives in our head that's kind of almost always looking for ways to present itself as something that's suffering, because it has learned incorrectly that we will get more genuine love and attention that way. So that's another one that lives inside. All these characters think that they're helping. And the game we do on the workshops is that instead of just letting those guys run the show and believing all their thoughts and letting their agenda and their use of our body chemicals take over, what we do is we turn towards them and we go, hey, thank you. Thank you for working so long. I'm sorry that I gave you such terrible information in the past and I've never updated you. Sorry about that. But I don't need you to do that job anymore. You can stand down. I'm an adult. I can actually decide the ways in which I want to exchange love. I can decide how much I'm failing, how much I'm not failing. I don't need an old critic voice in my head just being negative all the time. And they do not need to cling. That's the other thing, is like a whole cathedral of darkness doesn't fight one candle of light. Darkness doesn't fight light. It's just evaporates. The moment you turn towards these little guys and thank them, then you can begin to integrate them, and they'll always be with us for our life. They don't just disappear, but they have other gifts. They have childhood, playful, dancing, creative energy in them, which got edited away into these holding the door characters. And it releases that energy into our lives for our sexuality, for our creativity, for our playfulness, for our enjoyment of the short time we have as a human.
I keep on smiling and chuckling listening to that. And it reminds me a little bit like running a company or running the conference. Like if you give anybody wrong information, they can't do a good job. They do to their best intent, to their best ability, but with the wrong information, there's something wrong coming out of it. Maybe wrong is not the right word, but not something which helps. So,
Totally.
Going back to this right information and seeing it rather as something which wants to help and can't because the data is wrong. I think that there's a lot of compassion and kindness speaking out of that.
Totally. Like, we're so abandoning ourselves all the time. Not just because we don't want anyone to see that we're crazy. That's one huge one. Everyone's terrified that everyone else, everyone's presenting this appropriate shop window of I'm fine, I'm not crazy, I'm succeeding in my life. So there's a huge mask already to begin with to just show people the brochure of ourselves. And certainly the shame of having all these other characters that are going on, that are running the show, that are making us unconscious. We reject them when they come up. We're like, no. We self-abandon ourselves. We don't want to feel uncomfortable feelings. And dealing with the pain of the grief and the anger and all the things we have inside us that we have been suppressing. Because most of us, we were told it's not okay to cry. Most people, if they cry in one of my workshops or something, the first word out of their mouth is sorry. They don't even realize they've said it, but they have such a lack of permission to cry in the group. They're ashamed of it, so they say sorry. The same with anger. We were all shown that anger, a totally natural part of being a human, was naughty. Don't speak to your mother like that. Like any time we showed anger, we were punished or rejected. So all these parts of us have been hugely suppressed, and the body is trying to feel them because it's got many, many years of unfelt feelings that are all stuck inside, which is why we're always overreacting, why we're always crying in movies, why when somebody upsets us, we never feel upset to the proportion of what they just did. We want to fucking kill. Somebody drives stupidly in front of us when we're in a hurry. We want to kill that person. We have huge disproportionate responses to the things that upset us because of this huge accumulation of uncried tears, unscreamed rage, unexpressed anxiety, all these things. So the body's constantly trying to feel it, and yet the ego never wants to feel anything uncomfortable. So we've got like a real split between the intelligence of the body, the embodied part of us that needs to feel those things and shit them out, and the mental part of us, the ego part of us that is like, oh no, I don't ever want to feel uncomfortable. And they're constantly fighting each other. So part of my job with training people is to train the part of the ego that never wants to be uncomfortable to say, actually, you're going to be more uncomfortable if you always try and cherry pick only nice things and push away any pain. Like there's actually a good intelligence to say, I'm going to be interested in my feelings. I'm going to be interested in how my body responds when you say something I don't like, or you do something that maybe makes me feel a bit jealous or a bit insecure or a bit anxious. Instead of like trying to manipulate you to not do that so that I can once again never feel these feelings, I, instead of going outside to you, I come inside to me and I go, insecurity, hello. Normally we run away from it, and that's like abandoning ourselves. We're so afraid of everyone in the world abandoning us, but every single time we have a feeling we don't like and we run to control someone or run to the fridge or run to Facebook or to the cigarette, whatever, we're abandoning ourselves. I'm saying to myself, Jamie, your feelings are not okay to feel. I'm going to do something else. The greatest self-love and powerful embodiment practice is when we feel, let's say, an insecure feeling, is to, instead of turn away from ourselves, is to go deeper in and go, hey, your feelings are okay. What's going on? Insecurity, that's okay. We're not going to try and control Daniela. We're going to just like feel it. We're okay to feel this. How does it feel? And then the body starts kind of discharging some accumulation of whatever, and you feel 1 cup lighter today because the body's constantly trying to discharge a lifetime of suppressed feelings. And we need to become a willing participant in the incredible body's emotional plumbing system. Instead of avoiding our feelings, when we go inside and feel it, we're being a willing participant, and then the body's genius can really do a great job and offload so much stuff if you're willing to feel some edge. And that's the important thing. You have to be a human that can say, I am a human who is willing to feel some of my uncomfortable feelings. And if you can really mean that, then your body can really get to work discharging and offloading all your past shit. You don't have to mentally analyze it. You just have to feel it in an embodied way, dance it through if you need to, rubbing your chest. Sometimes there are tears. Sometimes you want to go and shout at the trees. Sometimes you just want to sit peacefully and feel it in the breath. Whatever works for you is a mixture for me. And then you're really not always bound by the overreactions of the past. Eventually your body clears most of it out, and then you can get upset with people at a moderate, reasonable amount when they behave like dickheads.
Yeah, exactly. Gosh, there were a couple of questions which came up. I think the first one, which I'm interested in, is it's a very fine line. On the one hand, it is like we need to turn away from comfort. We need to turn towards what is uncomfortable and not cherry pick what just feels nice. On the other side, suffering doesn't make it better. So turning towards suffering and thinking that the more we suffer, the more we deserve, the better it will become. It's a fine line. It's like.
Okay. So I would say the difference to remember with what you're saying is there's a difference between pain and suffering. There will definitely be pain and discomfort. as your body discharges some old grief or some old rage or something's triggered you today, which maybe is designed perfectly for today's discharge. Who knows? Maybe the soul is choosing just the right idiots today. But that's another story. Even if you don't believe in a plan, there will be pain, there will be discomfort, and turning towards the pain and discomfort so it can discharge, yes. However, when we try and suppress it and escape it and headfuck about it all the time and go crazy, that creates suffering because we're resisting it. So the formula I can say that works for me is pain plus curiosity. Pain plus resistance is suffering, but pain plus curiosity is liberation. But there will always be pain sometimes in your life. No one has no pain in their life. But if we meet that pain, turning towards it and let it do its work, let the body be a genius, it won't turn into suffering. It's the pain that we try and escape, suppress, and that turns into suffering. It's the resistance. So when we feel pain, most people resist it. Now they've got two problems. They've got the initial pain, and now they've got the resistance to the pain. They've got two things to deal with. That's impossible. But if when the pain comes, you don't bring in the second resistance, you just feel the pain, you've only got one thing to deal with, that's actually quite manageable.
That reminds me a little bit from this two arrow story from Buddhist stories, where it's described pain is the first arrow, which is inevitable. But if you're getting hit by the second arrow, which is the way how I relate to the pain, the attitude, where you said either with resistance or with curiosity, there is where I have a choice.
Exactly that. Buddha got all his best ideas from me. He's always stealing my stuff.
How dare. Okay. There is a question in the question and answer box, which I wanted, which relates a little bit to the shadows again. And Alexandra is asking if shadows are always coming from the inner child or always coming from the childhood, or do they come, get dissolved, redevelop?
I think it is possible. I think most of the shadows we have, which are basically parts of us which were shown to be unwelcome as children usually, that we wanted to hide away. Shadows doesn't mean dark and yucky, the dark side. Shadows means hidden away in the shadows, unseen. So don't think shadow always means dark, because most of us we each have been born with a lovely entertainer, flamboyant, rich entertainer that lives inside us. That was also pushed into the shadow and hidden away for most people, which is why they're terrified of public speaking. Some people think public speaking is more terrifying than death. So that exposure, that shame. So it wasn't just like our anger, our neediness, our greed that went into the shadow. It was also our ability to tell a joke, our sexuality. Many people were shown, oh, stop that, it's disgusting, especially religious people. So then they've lost their sensual enjoyment of their body and their sexuality. That's gone into the shadow. So many beautiful things go into the shadow. And yes, most of them in our formative, in our childhood years. But I definitely think it's possible when you're older in your adult life to suddenly feel a lot of shame or, something about an aspect of yourself and then hide it away and it goes into the shadows. You might learn later in life that you were used to be really, really confident with your body or with your singing voice, and then later in life it doesn't sound so good to you anymore, or you're not getting such positive feedback, so now you hide that part away. So things can probably go into the shadow later in life, but there's enough to do with the ones that we already have to deal with from our childhood. There are so many, particularly about comfort with being seen in your lovely sexy body, being seen in your pleasure, being seen in your excitement for a project. Sometimes it's uncool to look excited about a project 'cause it's very vulnerable. Everyone goes, you're a dreamer. Look at you. You're never going to do it. There's a vulnerability about telling people you're excited, great, ambitious ideas. So many things are shut down and hidden away where we don't step forward because we don't want to be ashamed. We don't want to be rejected. We don't want to have people judge us. And we are missing so much of the richness of life through daring to do a big project, daring to do a painting that people will see, daring to sing, daring to dance, daring to feel fully sexy, daring, so many beautiful parts of life are edited away unnecessarily because we think other people are more judgmental than they really are. We think other people care more that our paintings were only okay, some of them, not the most brilliant painting in the world. But we forget that John Lennon, Jimi Hendrix, the greatest artists, they all did some pretty rubbish album tracks. They didn't only do Imagine and All Along the Watchtower and, Hey Jude. They also did Octopus's Garden, and so we over edit, thinking that everything I present has to be perfect and great, otherwise people will judge me. They won't. They don't even care. They're looking at their phone. No one cares that much about you. Don't be so vain that you don't put your stuff out there because everyone's going to think maybe that you don't do everything brilliantly. Do some stuff averagely. Can we be ordinary for a little bit, please? I learned as a child, because I had a little bit of a, not to get out the violins, but I had a little bit of a neglectful childhood where no one was really interested. So I kind of got the idea I had to be amazing to get love. I had to earn my love. I had to do something great to do, pass an exam or do a great picture or make people laugh. I had to do something to be loved. I wasn't just going to be loved for being the ordinary me. And our whole culture backs that up, that, we don't really celebrate being ordinary. That's like thought to be boring and mediocre. But I want to bring it back. We are ordinary. Let's stop exhausting ourselves trying to be perfect. Therefore, we don't show people our paintings and our poems. Exhausting ourselves trying to be amazing and earn this love because we've learned that we won't get it unless we really show something special. Let's let go of the specialness. Can we all just love each other in our ordinariness, please? I would love if we could normalize just being average, just being normal, sometimes being messy, sometimes being lovely, sometimes being powerful, sometimes not being powerful, being weak, sometimes writing the most brilliant song, sometimes doing one that wasn't that good, and none of it mattering, never being in a league table of love because of any of that stuff. I would like to bring back the ordinary.
The problem is for me that very often my inner critic is so loud it overshadows or overscreens all the judgment which possibly can come from outside. So yeah. It's usually that the inner judgment is projected to the outside, and that's at least for me where the fear of rejection can come from.
And that's why we need to take that inner critic and have a dialogue and change its agenda. While that internalized critic thinks you have to earn love, you have to be perfect, you have to da-da-da, then it's going to drive you because you've never really dialogued with it enough to change its rules. But when that character, when you get that character in a sort of, come to a jamiecatto.com workshop or whatever, Transforming Shadows, I think is coming up soon. When you talk to that character and you change its agenda, you give it new rules and you say, we're not going for perfect anymore. We're going for average. we're aiming lower. Then it is feeling it doesn't have the rules, it doesn't have the neurosis, it doesn't have the strong compulsion and addiction to trying to make you perfect all the time. But we need to tell that little part of us inside to let go of the perfection addiction. Otherwise, it never got told to stop and it will just carry on and on and on.
Yeah, and it's never happy. It's never satisfied. It's just running after things.
Yeah.
Brings me a little bit into creativity, because creativity is one of your baselines, and there's a question which relates to that in the chat or in the question and answer, sadly without a name, anonymous, but like you were fairly successful. You were filling like whole halls with your music, and you moved away from this to teach people about these kind of things, about shadows and demons and how to transform this into creativity. So how was your own journey in order to become a teacher? Like what brought you to that?
Well, we still try and keep a mixture. The last movie, Becoming Nobody, came out last year and we did some great music for that, and we still gather to play. But yeah, I mean, I'm not playing things like Faithless and One Giant Leap anymore, but it didn't feel really an identity shift. I mean, I don't think I am a musician or I am a filmmaker or I am a teacher. People say, you were this and then you became that, as if my identity or your identity is what we were doing. And I'm just me, and I spend this much time in the year making music or this much time in the year teaching, but none of them are who I am. I just want to say that. And I think people get a bit hung up on that. But so I never felt like I was going from one to the other. Just sometimes it's more this year and less. Next I put out some songs this year. Who knows, next year I might spend all of it doing concerts and hardly doing any workshops. You never know. It's just kind of where the interest is at the moment. But the teaching thing was really just like, I used to have quite a lot of suffering before I knew this stuff. When I was a child, I was a problem child, and when I was a teenager also, really. And I used to have quite extreme panic attacks, like out of the blue, I would start melting down and really I couldn't function. And I would be very scared of many things in life. And so on my journeys, going around the world playing music or doing One Giant Leap with Duncan and lots of the interviews we did for those movies and the workshops and the spiritual things that I love reading. I would read Buddhist things, Taoist things, some Christian even things, not very many, but some. All the different lyrical, spiritual things, they're trying to express the human experience, and some of them are doing it quite beautifully. And I experienced just lots of psychology, like just different things that some of them didn't work and some of them did work. And the things which did work became incredibly precious to me. They became like my lifeline. Things which lifted me out of being disempowered and terrified all the time, the things which lifted me to a place where I felt powerful and creative and intimate and connected with everyone, they became like very precious jewels for me, So more and more, this bag of jewels, which are very diverse, from different things I've experienced, they definitely work, for me. So when you find something which is so precious, we want to share it with everybody, and I see around me so many people suffering unnecessarily, like there's so much sleep, so much automatic behavior, so much hiding, so much lack of intimacy, so much lack of the connection we want, so many people playing small and not daring to be creative, as if it takes some huge leap to get there. In their mind, it does, because they've lived like that their whole life and they haven't seen these jewels. And it just feels like it hurts to see such a lack of potential everywhere. Everyone acting like muggles, everyone missing the magic, everyone missing the joy, the potential of being creative, being intimate, being sexy, being just full of, I don't want to say abundance because it's a bit of a sort of naff spiritual world, but there is so much to enjoy and life disappears so quick that I just feel really passionate that I just want everyone to know and have a chance to have more potential in their life. It messes with my OCD to see such an unnecessary lack of potential. That's what it is. Like, Bob Geldof, they said to him when he did Live Aid and Feeding the World, they called him Saint Bob. They said, and he, in interviews, he would always dispute that. He would say, I'm not a saint. I just find it so fucking annoying that this is unnecessary suffering that could be solved. And I feel that about my work is like, I find it annoying when I see people, the way they treat their children or the way they're so unconscious with their lives or with not daring to be creative or not daring to be intimate or not daring. It annoys me, this incredible lack of potential that the majority of the people in our culture are living a tiny possibility of the fun and joy and intimacy that they could. And it bothers me. Maybe it's compassion, but I'm not certain.
No, there is a piece of compassion in it, I think. And there's also a piece of gender and purpose in that. And my personal take on purpose is, to some extent, it is egoistic. Like, it's my purpose, and that's what I want to manifest into the world. So something you wrote in your book, Insanely Gifted, which got stuck with me for a long time, is that you compare the mind. There are many things which got stuck with me from this book, but you compare the mind like a castle, and when we grow up, we close one door after the other until the moment we graduate from school or we're entering adult life, we're living, instead of a castle with 300, 400, 1,000 rooms, in a 2-room apartment with a bathtub.
I wish I thought that. That's Debbie Ford, who wrote Dark Side of the Light Chasers, which is a great book.
Okay.
Yeah, we're born a castle with 1,000 rooms, and our parents then say, darling, we don't really use these rooms over here so much, and they get boarded up. And then as we go through life, more and more people come through and they tell us which rooms they like better than the other room. So more get fallen into disuse, yes, until you think you're a 2-bedroom flat that needs some work. Yeah. And that's the exact great description of the editing process, that we only show the parts of ourselves that we think that historically people have responded well to, and the things which are at all risky, we hide away. And that's most of us, because we are messy people. Being a person is messy.
We're humans. Humans are messy. We're not made to be perfect. But my question in that is like, how, like you have yourself 3 kids, and I'm sure a lot of our audience are parents, or also curious about how to address this. Like, is there a way how we can parent our kids in reducing this process? There is an editing process.
Of course, like the more a parent tries to edit their child or mold their child, especially through shaming talk, that's not being a good boy, or that's bad. Obviously, there are certain behaviors like lying and hitting, and there are some things we don't want them to do. But being loud, that's your problem. So being a yang parent, you're penetrating the child, you're be like this, be like that, don't be like this, don't be like that. And we do it far too much. There are some things that we need to steer them away from, but much less, not just because you're tired, not just because you've got a headache, not just because, I believe in being a yin parent, which is not about molding the child. It's about being receptive, listening to the child, and we create the perfect space, the perfect environment safe around the child for it to grow into whatever tomato plant it wants to be. And the yin parent is more of a curious listening thing, where instead of pruning the thing, we're giving it more and more space to expand. Like, a goldfish will only grow to the size of the bowl that you put it in. So you put it in a bowl, the goldfish will be this. But if you put it in a bigger pond, the goldfish grows bigger. So I believe in how much space can we allow the child to express safely. Does the child want to dye its hair purple today? Fine. I'm not a parent who cares what will people think. Many parents would say to the child, no, you can't do purple hair. So that's a limitation. For me, fine, purple hair, whatever. Like, I have to, as a father, I have to have a really, really good reason to say no. And there are some things which are a no, about safety, about treating people with respect. Of course, there are some things which are a no. But there are many fewer than you think. And I think, letting them make a mess, letting them feel free to fail, letting them feel free to be messy, let them experiment trying to make a cake which has got stones in it. You know that that's not going to work, but let them discover it. Let them destroy the whole kitchen, making something that they will never eat, or, be freer with their expression and their experimentation. Let them discover, let them fall into the swimming pool. I don't say when there's a little child next to the swimming pool, come away from there, you're going to fall in the pool. No, I say, hey, there's an edge there. Be careful, you might fall in the pool. But I don't tell them to come away. I tell them the danger. And then I sit near, and then if they fall in the pool, they're not going to drown. I'm close enough to bring them out. Or if they're going to touch the hot Yes, they might burn their finger, but now they know what hot is through an experience, not through my words. So I feel much safer around them, falling into the pool, making something that won't work, dressing themselves. Like one of my kids, she wanted to feed herself and dress herself long before she was really had the ability to do that. But she was absolutely like strict, like you couldn't dress her, you couldn't feed her, and you just had to allow it. I could have forced her and taken the spoon away and made her eat. I could have held her like this and put clothes on her. I could have dominated her. But it was more interesting to just leave half an hour, tell her half an hour earlier to get ready because we were going, and give her that half an hour extra to do it herself, to be who she wants to be, And it was better I found it more rich as a parent, yes, to have an extra 15 minutes wiping up the mess after she has been eating, but still let her have her experience because she's a very headstrong person that wants to do it her way. And she's never been held back in that. And now she's very much commanding at a very young age a lot of energy and a lot of sort of getting a lot of stuff done because of that. She's very passionate about lots of things that she organizes because she's learned that she can do it. So I'm maybe lucky because I don't have my life so full of deadlines and times I have to be. I don't cram my time, so there's only 5 minutes for this and we have to hurry to do that. Quickly get your shoes on. I don't live my life. I haven't organized my life so that everything is so full that there's no time for what I just described. So not everybody maybe has that luxury that, but as much as I can, I advise people to inject as much time into the day for the magical, unexpected things to happen and have time for them, so that you're not pulling the child's hand down the street to get to school because we left slightly late and there's only 12 minutes. No, we leave early and we walk slowly, and then that way if they see a bee inside a flower, they can stop and look at the bee pollinating a flower and not be quick, hurry up, we're going to be late. The children are given, hurry up, we're going to be late, hurry up, we're going to be late. They're told to hurry up far too much because of the parents' terrible scheduling. And I feel really passionate that having that extra time, one, everyone's more relaxed, so they're not constantly feeling alarmed. They're also not feeling wrong that they were made to be late. They're not paranoid of coming into school late. They can look at the bee in the flower. They can imagine things. They can just stop and look at some workmen digging the road and be fascinated with them. Factor in more time for the kids. Wow, that was a short answer.
I got the sense that was the short version. But it leads me in a way to probably my last question. Sadly, I could keep on having a conversation with you for another 2 hours, talking about time. But in a way, it sounds like first we need to parent ourselves in order to unedit, in order to face our own shadows, to work with our own shadows, so we don't give that to the next generation. And yeah. I would be curious, what would be an easy way, or what could you give people for tips and how we can parent ourselves? I don't like this need to work on our shadows. There's a lot about but
so if there's one thing that everyone can do this, and it's probably the most powerful thing, is to really raise your awareness around your self-talk, the way you talk to yourself in your head, the quality of the tone of voice that your thinking has, and talk to yourself in a kind, soothing, gentle way. So when you feel a huge wave of anxiety, I put my hand on my chest and go, hey, it's all right, mate. It's okay, we got this. I do that every day. I talk out loud to myself in a kind way. So that's, I guess, the most powerful thing to do, is to keep talking to yourself in a kind way. And when you notice yourself not talking in a kind way, you go, hey, all right. You don't reject it. You go, hey, I know you think you're helping. Let's just come back to a bit of kindness. It's all right. We're all doing our best here. And just keep finding, even if you think you're failing, almost try and find that adorable. Use the phrase, when you think you fucked up, or you think that you're being too much like this or not enough like that, try and use the phrase, how very human of me. Allow yourself to be a human, which is sometimes messy, sometimes failing, sometimes angry, sometimes, how very human of me. It's okay. And you almost find every failure, which isn't really a failure, more adorable than the last. You go, if your 2-year-old or your 3-year-old is trying to run and then falls over and rolls into a bush, you're going, don't worry, you pick it up. Treat yourself like that when you fail. Don't worry, here we go again. It's like a very lighter self-treatment, kinder. Yeah, everybody can notice, notice a bit better what your thinking is like, what your self-treatment and your self-talk is like, and practice, even if you feel a bit silly, practice speaking and treating yourself with more kindness. It would change the whole planet.
It would. It's easier said than done, for sure.
Don't dismiss it with that. Don't dismiss it. I want you to retract that. That's just something people say. It's not easier. It's not easier said than done. It's actually easier done than you imagine, really. That's just like one of those mental dismissive phrases people use to try to get out of doing stuff. It doesn't take very much effort to notice your mind. It doesn't take very much effort to be kind to yourself. And I think we should be careful about just dismissing things. It's like, actually, it's quite easy.
You're right. Hot in the act. Thanks. All right. I'm scrolling quickly a little bit through the questions. There are a lot of questions in the question and answer box. Some of them we addressed. Some of them, sadly, we couldn't.
May I plug the workshop next weekend?
Yes, please. So
if you want to dive more into this stuff. Sorry, I'm talking over you. What did you say?
If people want to find out more about you, where can they find you and what comes up with you?
Yeah, well, jamiecatto.com, my name.com is where all the everything, music and workshops and all stuff is. But next Sunday coming, there's a day called What About Us, which is all about what we've been talking about today, a deeper connection with ourselves and everyone, how to actually do this in a practical way. It's a thing called What About Us. Yeah, and the other ones like the activism one and transforming shadows, they're all listed there as well. But the one this Sunday is a really special one to me, which isn't just about relationships with others, although it's great for that, but it's really about the things we've been talking about today. That's called What About Us, and that's on Sunday. But everything is at jamiecatto.com. There's one for activists. There's one for transforming shadows. There's one for relationships. There's all different ways that we can explore. There's one for bringing your dream project into the world called What About You, where I just talk about my 30 years of how I've made my projects, and we green light everyone else's projects on the workshop. That's called What About You. All these different great workshops. And I'm just easy to find on Facebook and Instagram and jamiecatto.com. Yeah. Thank you.
And certainly worth to go deeper. And also a personal recommendation. Here's the book from Jamie, Insanely Gifted. Fits into every pocket, at least woman handbag. I can say that. And it's really nicely written and helped me a lot a few years back.
Wonderful.
Wow, Jamie, it was a pleasure. I love to talk with you more. I promised people zucchini, so finishing up with a little bit of a zucchini story.
Yes,
Jamie, talk about your zucchinis in the garden.
Well, you made me realize in my garden that I had let them, they're not really zucchinis anymore. They're more like marrows. When you visited me and we went into the veggie garden, I realized I'd been like not exactly paying enough attention to them. And I've now got these enormous, giant fucking, so I've been giving them away. If anyone wants to come to Oxford, and I've got far too much vegetables in my garden, come to Oxford and help me. Come and have some cucumbers, some zucchinis, broccoli, some Swedes, some turnips, some tomatoes, some radishes, kale, rhubarb, chard, rocket, lettuce. We've got too much food.
I second that. And the zucchini are a little bit like the goldfish. If you let them grow, if they have enough space, they will keep
I
on
wonder where
growing.
they stop. I mean, I wonder how did they go as big as a house, as big as a car? I mean, how big does it go? I should just leave one of them just to see how far it goes.
Definitely send me a photo. All right,
I'm
we're
going to do a cucumber harvest today. Thank you for having me so much. Please come to What About Us next Sunday. It's going to be beautiful. And thank Mark Walsh for putting together this whole organization that's growing and growing and bringing so much embodiment. It all starts in the body. However anybody is annoying you, however your job is stressing you, however your mental demons are plaguing you, always first come into the body first and take a breath and stop, and you'll already be halfway home.
exactly.
Thank you, Daniela.
Thank you, JB. All right. So this event is sponsored by the Embodiment Conference, and you can go to the Embodiment Conference portal, and you can already buy the recordings, which would help us a lot and make the event happen. We're still with £250,000 in the depths to organize the event. So help us out. And the next session on the self-care weekend, let me check this schedule, because Steve has it all in his head. I don't. So what do we have next?
We have Mario.
We have the Magic of the Body with Mario Sanchez Avila. And later on, we have the wonderful, sensual Roman Norris. We have Philip Shepard. We have the hilarious Rachel Blackman, a couple of embodiment circuits, and so much more. Yeah, wonderful. Hey, Steve, there you are. Thanks for joining, and see you in one of the next sessions.